guys were connected to a Road Rash reboot for a little while. What about that?
That's good homework. Yeah, I don't know what's been announced there, but
Well, it never
or
happened.
leaked or whatever. It never happened. Yeah, I think there was a studio that was working on it that was using the Burnout engine, and there was this discussion of like, you know, a Burnout Road Rash reboot kind of thing that married the two, which I think would have been awesome.
That's like the best idea I've ever heard. How does
Yeah, the Road Rash was, it was one of my favorite games. Like, it's an awesome game. Like, it's just got a great kind of arcadey feel. Yeah, I would have loved to work on a Road Rash game.
So, all right, you said in your little Hello Games profile on the site that you love arcade racers. You know, between Burnout, you mentioned Mario Kart and Excite. I love Excite Bike from my Nintendo childhood too. Super Monkey Ball, so all of that very much explains that you would start your own studio and make a game like Joe Danger, which was an excellent game in its own right. But how do we get to No Man's Sky from all those, from Joe Danger and all of these arcade racers?
I think I don't know what you're like, right? But a lot of people that I meet in games have this same personality as me, where there's games that I want to play, and then there's games that I feel I have to play. Like, I feel I have to play every game that comes out, pretty much. Not every game now, because there are too many. But like, as a kid, you felt like you could just about keep on top of it.
Yeah.
And if people were talking about a game, you feel like you had to have played it, at least enough to know about it. And then I'm that really annoying guy that you meet who's played everything, or he's got all the consoles or whatever, and you go around his house and he brings you in and he's like trying to convince you that you have to get this game.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, sit down, this would be for you. And, you know, I get like when I get a new console, even now, I will show my friends or whatever. And when I get like a new, like the VR headsets and stuff like that, I'm like, I have to bring people in. Like, you gotta try this out, you know. And I'm more, So like I think I've got a reasonably like eclectic taste in games, or widespread taste in games, at least.
Yeah.
Like, I love like Mario Kart, right? Mario Kart on the SNES is the only Mario Kart. And Mario Kart Battle Mode is like one of my all-time favorites. But then I would also love Elite. I would love Star Control.
Sure.
You know, I would love things that are just completely different. I think there's a lot of people, I think you find a lot of gamers who are really, they're widespread in what they'll play and what they'll do, compared to people who are into, say, films or books or whatever, you know. Normally people will be like, oh, I like fantasy books or whatever, whereas you don't see people who are necessarily just, I like fantasy games.
So Joe Danger, which is the first game when you start your own studio, Hello Games, it was a really good game. How do you feel about it now, like years later with the benefit of hindsight?
I'm super proud of Joe Danger. Like, I hope this doesn't sound weird or bad, given that we're surrounded by No Man's Sky stuff, but like, I would be more proud of JD than I would be of No Man's Sky, kind of thing. Like, just because No Man's Sky is just like a concept right now, you know, it hasn't come out, but Joe Danger came out, and like, you know, we created that, like 4 of us from nothing, and it came out, and then lots of people played it, you know, and I've seen their reaction, and I've had people say it to me and stuff like that, and so I know, like, as a programmer, there's not really that much more that I could do that would be as impactful as that. You know, that sounds really pretentious, but you know what I mean. It's like, if a million people played Joe Danger, and whatever, if they only put an hour into it, you know, that's like, hey, that's pretty crazy, you know. And Joe Danger was a really fun, happy game, so you always get people saying to you like, oh, I had a really good time, or played it. We did this thing at the end of all the JDs, if you 100% it, it gives you like an email address, right? And you can mail it, and that's called like the 100% club, right?
Nice.
And like, if you ever want to, if I ever want to feel good about myself, like you could dip into this email address, and it's all people will normally, like it says like, oh, you're in the 100% club, here's this email, mail us what you thought or whatever.
Yeah.
And you get this really cool stuff. So you get people who are like, I've had all sorts, like people who are in their 80s who've played Jet Ager.
Wow.
People who are, either in hospital or they're like fighting abroad or stuff like that you really wouldn't expect, kind of thing. And you get a lot of like bored students and things like that. But like, people tell you really fun stuff about themselves and stuff. But that's a really, that's a real thing. You know what I mean? And it still happens. People still play JD, they still play it on iPhone and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm super proud of it. At the time when it came out, you don't feel that way. You're like, oh God, it's kind of like anticlimactic or whatever. Now it's actually that I can kind of appreciate it,
So did you feel like you had to make that game so that you knew how to make your own game before you could do something like No Man's Sky?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds, I don't like saying that because it sounds dismissive of like Joe Danger, but it was definitely a stepping stone, and we said that at the time, like we said it to each other in Hello Games. We were like, we're going to do this, and then the aspiration that we would do something much bigger. Like when we like left our jobs, and there was 4 of us, and I was sort of trying to convince the guys to leave their job, which right now, as you know, like everyone goes and becomes an indie, right? Like we were doing it before it was cool. We're like the original hipster indies. No, we were doing it. We left and started a studio and started making a game kind of pre-Braid. It then came out just after that, and Castle Crashers and stuff like that. But there wasn't really, XBLA was just not really a thing. You'd add Geometry Wars on it. PSN had Warhawk. There was no App Store. This makes me sound really old. But like,
it wasn't that long ago.
It's not that long ago, right? But yeah, and it's hard to remember. But so the idea of leaving when I left, like, people are like, what are you going to do? Where are you going to? You're going to make a game. Who's going to buy it? You're going to sell it on your own site? That kind of thing. That was the attitude. Yeah. So yeah, I was trying to convince the guys to leave and that this is a good idea. And I sent them a bunch of images, right? So one of the sets of images was like loads of skyscrapers, right? And I was like, this is what we're making now, right? We're making these like massive games that are really functional.
Yeah.
And are kind of made to blueprints. Because at this stage, we were now on like Burnout 5 and...
Revenge and Black
and I'd done Black, and we were heading into like Black 2 and stuff like that. And so it's like, this is what we're making now, right? And the team size was getting really big, like you would have to build a big skyscraper or whatever. And then I sent them all these images, really pretentious of me, right? But I sent them all these images of like Swedish architecture and stuff like that, like cool houses, like a house that was just set on a lake and a house on an island. The kind of thing that you would, if you saw, you would stop your car and you would look at it, you know, and be like, oh, I'd like to live there, kind of thing. And I was like, wouldn't you like to make something like this? This is what I want to make, something that's really personal, that people can look at a screenshot of and really like and get excited about. And one of the guys said, cool, let's do that, right? And this makes him sound totally over the top, but he was like, let's do that, but only if we go on and make a skyscraper of our own, right? Like afterwards, right? And he was that sounds really like over the top, but he was trying to be funny. Like, it was an aspirational, it was stupid, obviously, because there was 4 of us. So it was one of these stupid things to say that's like, you know, yeah, we'll, you know, but we're going to make a big AAA game, right, you know, and it was like, that was funny. So we had, on our website, we had like games that, for years, we had games that Hello Games make, and it was Joe Danger, and then underneath it would say Project Skyscraper, kind of thing. So that was what No Man's Sky then turned out to be. We kept talking about it, kind of thing. So yeah, it was always meant as a stepping stone, but we figured it would take years and years and years. Like we would get bigger and bigger or something like that, you know.
But it doesn't work that way. You end up off. You started in secret from the rest of the team. Then you get the whole team involved, and then finally, the VGA Awards, December 2013. Yeah. You bring a trailer, and you're right. You decide that's where you're announcing the game. Were you expecting the incredible reaction you got to that?
No. No, definitely not. What kind of person would? No, we were super nervous about that. I mean, we were originally talking to Jeff Keighley, who was putting together the VGAs. Yeah. And he knew that we were working on something, but he had no idea what it was, and he kind of contacted us. He'd actually happened to come to visit our studio, and he had been at Media Molecule, and we're near to Media Molecule, so he just called in on his way past. And nobody had been to our office, kind of thing. And we'd done this really weird thing of boxing off one room, and we'd covered it in sci-fi book covers. We'd like bought a load of sci-fi books and then cut off the covers and put them all on the wall, right? And everyone else was still working on Joe Danger, and we'd gone into this little room to work on something in secret, and we had literally boxed off the walls, no one could get in, kind of thing, and we had our own little entrance and stuff. And Jeff just saw that and was like, we were like, cover up your screens, you know. And he was just like, what are you guys doing in here? And I think we were so shifty and suspicious about it that he was like, they must be doing something amazing or something, you know. And all the visuals of what we were, you know, that were on the walls and stuff were so different to Joe Danger. Yeah. So he was like, I don't know what you guys are doing, but if you can do a good trailer, then, you know, we could have you on VGAs or whatever. So we just went like, oh my God, we got to bring together this trailer. And we brought it together and sent it to him. And I sent it off and then actually started showing people. I was like friends and stuff like that. And I was like, I asked them kind of one question at the end, so it's just like a 90-second trailer, and I was like, right, I'll give you no context. I'm going to show you this thing. What do you think? Should this be on the VGA? Is this game ready to announce or whatever? Yeah. And everyone apart from one person said no. So I contacted Jeff, and I was like, can we pull the trailer, kind of thing. So at that stage, he had kind of already fought to get us a place there in a slot, and he was like, I think it's all right. You guys should show it, and I think it'll, you know. And yeah, I remember the discussion was that we felt that we didn't even know what kind of reaction we were going to get. Yeah. So at the start of the trailer, it was like, it used to say from the people who brought you Joe Danger or whatever. But then that just seemed so weird with the game that it was. So we were just like, just take it off. Let's not associate Hello Games with this thing. We don't know how this is going to go. Kind of thing. But yeah, I thought that I was heading into some sort of not disaster, but you know, this may not go well. There's part of you that's like, oh maybe everyone's wrong and it'll go, you know, because you look at it and you're kind of proud of what you're doing and you're like, this is cool. Yeah. But we had no idea. We certainly weren't thinking this is going to be huge or anything like that.
So does overnight then, are you reinvigorated? Are you terrified because everybody likes it? What's the internal reaction at Hello?
I had the closest to what I would call like a Mighty Ducks moment. You know what I mean? Right? So because we thought...
What, like quack? Like rallying the team kind of thing? Or
like, you know...
pounding the sticks on the ice?
You know how, like, in films they end and everyone's happy, you know? Like, I think that's how they all, like, cheer and then it freeze frames and the music comes up, right? Like, that kind of, the underdog, and they've won, you know, that kind of thing, right? So, like... I'd never been on camera and stuff like that, really, like not in that way. And we did the VGAs. I went on, and that was just a blur. I don't even know what I said, but I came on after the trailer, talked to Jeff, and then walked out. And the way it's filmed, there's these like doors you walk through, and then you come back out, and when you come back out, there's all these people that I would know, like Tim Schafer and stuff like that, you know. And it was like all these kind of famous gaming people, and they've all been watching it on the screen, and it's gone down well, kind of thing. So I like walked out, and there was the 4 of us that worked on No Man's Sky up until that point. The other 3 were there, and so I walked out, and there's like, you know, so it's this stupid movie moment where like Tim Schafer's there, who I've like admired, you know, and it's like, good job, you know, and it's like you're walking down and everybody's like, yeah, that looked cool and stuff like that, you know, and then I go down to the guys and they're like, we're trending on Twitter, you know, and stuff like that. So you have this, that was awesome, like that was just the best moment, you know what I mean, and we're all like hugging and stuff like that, because we thought we were heading for like all the worst things are going on in your mind.
Yeah, basically. The other 3, they've followed you into the desert, basically, right?
Yeah. So, and then there's all the people who are back home watching it because it's like 3 a.m. and people have stayed up and they're all like texting you and stuff. And my phone was just going crazy. Yeah. So it was cool. It was awesome. Obviously, that's like you're like, let's make this. I mean, it was just a blur. We got on a plane heading back, and like the great thing when there's 4 of you is you just fit in a row, you know. And I remember Grant, who's down the other end, you know, and he turned to us and he was like, Sean's just laid the golden egg. We've all just got to carry the golden egg now, you know. We got to make this thing, you know. But we were so excited heading back from that. Yeah, it was amazing. The team, the rest of the team, didn't really know what we were doing, you know? So that was a pretty crazy thing for them. They had been working on Joe Danger and enjoying it and stuff, but it's obviously a big leap, you know?
So you come back from the highest of highs, and not too long after, your office is decimated in a flood.
Yeah.
Did you think the game was done, or was there a panic, or were you just instantly like, okay, we've got backups, it's fine?
Yeah, it was a couple of weeks later, and it was Christmas Eve, and we were all off from work. And the whole office flooded, which is a crappy thing, obviously. I think if we hadn't announced the game, so like, because I nearly backed out of it, obviously. I think if we had backed out of it and then had been flooded, it's hard to know. I think we might have like just canned No Man's Sky, because I think we would have been feeling really unsure of it. You know, when we were trying to back out of it, we were just like, what have we been doing? You know? So, I mean, it's an awkward thing because we didn't lose. Like, we obviously had some backups and stuff like that, but you lose a lot of work, and we couldn't really talk about that because generally we just announced. People would have been angry and stuff like that. You know, they'd be like, people don't understand. Obviously, you're a small team,
right?
And like we came back into the studio like Christmas Day. The whole team just kind of reassembled. And we'd had this, this sounds really bad. I'm going to say the flood was a really good thing that happened to us, right? So we'd had this thing where we'd had a team of 10, and there was 4 people who'd gone off in a room and done this thing, and then 6 people who'd kind of watched and not been as involved. And some of them would have felt the same way we did, which is they would have seen the No Man's Sky trailer just before it went out at the VGAs and thought, I'm not sure how this is going to go down, kind of thing. And then when we came back, we were like, right, everyone needs to work on this. We need to ramp up the team.
Yeah.
You know, we all want to be working on this. But it's a weird thing for them. They're like, you know,
because they haven't been involved.
Yeah, and
it's just like, hey, work on this thing that I've done without you.
Yeah. And we're all good friends, and there wasn't any problem, but it was slightly odd feeling, right?
They weren't creatively invested in it at that point, is that fair to say?
I think the two teams had diverged a little bit. We had had a bunch of experiences that they hadn't, and they had had a bunch of experiences that we hadn't, and so you can't, anyway, it's just, and it needed like a bonding thing, and that's what happened, right? Like all of us just kind of reassembled to like just throw out everything in the office, all our equipment, and build all new PCs and all of this kind of thing. And we ended up in like this tiny little room with 10 of us crammed in there on like makeshift desks and stuff like that. It looked like the like workshop at Dell or something like that. There was just computer parts everywhere. Just trying to like, you know, dry stuff out or salvage stuff or build new stuff. And it was really bonding. And I remember saying to the team, like, you know, like, yes, this is crappy and stuff like that, but imagine, like, it's just, I'm really bad for this kind of thing, but I was like, imagine what it's going to be like when we walk out on stage at E3 and like we, you know, like we show the game like in its fullest and we can kind of really properly reveal it. And that was a stupid thing to say because obviously we'd lost a bunch of work.
Yeah.
But it was a kind of a like, you know, and we had no reason to think that we would be at E3 and stuff like that. But it was like, imagine that, like work backwards from that. That'll be a cool moment because obviously, and so we went silent that whole time between there and E3, which is kind of hard to remember back to, but we just said nothing kind of thing because the truth was, hey, we've got loads of work to do now. You know? Yeah, so we just went quiet and we kind of ramped up the team. More and more people joined from that other group of 6 and started building something for E3.